Hello, I am Jennifer Nassour. I'm the former chair of the Massachusetts Republican Party. I'm an attorney at Rubin and Rudman. I am COO of Reflect Us, a nationwide nonpartisan female organization. Oh, yes, and I am a Republican.
You are. I know. Everyone has a flaw.
You know, some days it's kind of sad.
And I'm Jessie Mermell. I'm a former selectman in the town of Brookline, although now it's been changed to the select board, and I have to get used to saying that. I was Governor Patrick's communications director. I'm a member of the Democratic State Committee, and I used to run external affairs at Planned Parenthood League of Massachusetts, and I am a Democrat.
You know, usually I feel bad for you.
You can send me a care package. So today, we wanted to expand on a conversation we've touched on a little bit over our past 2 episodes. Also, we should say, hi, Mom.
Yes, hi, Mom.
There are only 2 listeners at this point, we're convinced. But
Maybe we have 5. Maybe they got, like, some of their friends to
I think
listen.
my dad's listening now, too. But we've been talking a little bit about running this year in what people are thinking of as the Year of the Woman 2.0 after 1992, and we thought we might do a deeper dive. So we scrolled through our Rolodexes, because I'm an old person and I have a Rolodex, and came up with 2 really talented women who put their hat in the ring this year and came up short, but I think ran strong, impressive campaigns, and we wanted to talk to them about that experience.
Yes, because I think it's a really, number one, running for office, I have to say, give you both a ton of credit for doing that. And number 2, I think it is a different experience that women have than what men have from what I've seen.
So should we say who we have here?
I think we should. We should stop holding this back.
I know,
Surprise.
the suspense. So we're very pleased to be joined by Gerly Adrien, who ran for state representative in Everett. Yes, the 28th Middlesex. Excellent. And also ran in 2016. So you have an interesting perspective on what it's been like in multiple years. And Gerly is a Democrat.
Yes.
Yes, and on the Republican side, I am so happy to have my friend Beth Lindstrom here today. Beth Lindstrom ran for U.S. Senate. She had 2 male opponents. Beth was the first female executive director of the Massachusetts Republican Party. She ran the Treasury, state Treasury, back in the 90s under
lottery.
Oh, lottery. Sorry.
First woman
You know
lottery
what? I
director.
know.
That's
I know
okay.
it was lottery. I'm thinking Treasury. Lottery's
They
like
live
Treasury.
together. They live
They
together.
live together.
They do.
With Joe Malone and Bill Weld and all of those guys that were there in the 90s. And then it was the head of consumer affairs under Mitt Romney. And then she's a small business owner and a mom of 3 awesome boys that her and her husband Ray raised to be incredible young men. So I give her a lot of credit for that because I'm in the throes of it with girls. And so Beth decided to take the plunge and run for U.S. Senate.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And here we are.
So, ladies, tell us a little bit about your campaigns. I mean, we'll get more specific and ask questions later, but you're now, a month or so?
Month today.
Wow, out from Election Day. And so you have a little bit of perspective, but, tell us about your races.
Why don't you go first?
Yeah. So this is Gerly. I talk about the campaign being inspiring, especially for Everett. We've never had a woman or a person of color run for state representative, and I saw the movement that we were able to create from my campaign, and we still have that movement and that spark coming from our community. So it's been a month out. It's for me personally, it was sad because I felt like it disappointed a lot of people, but for a lot of people, it was an exciting moment to see that we came so close.
And Beth?
So for a U.S. Senate campaign, it was a great experience. A month out now. I haven't dissected every single city in town and to see where you won and where you lost. But I think, taking it back, just as speaking of running as a woman, to be able to step forward, to cross that line, to say yes, I think is a big deal. And if we're talking specifically about how women think about running for office, I think that was one of the hardest things, because when people had posed to me to run, my thought process was, wait a minute, I don't know everything. wait a minute, I need to be perfect. Wait, I don't know. And I think there's a really big
I
difference.
should note you
there.
have 4 nodding heads around the table right now.
Right?
Yeah.
So just to start there as to take this on, especially as a U.S. Senate candidate, and I've been around, as Jen said, for 30 years, being the first woman director of the party, so I've seen a lot. Ran Scott Brown's first race, helped Governor Romney. So I've seen a lot, but I've never been a candidate. And so it does take a lot to step forward. And now that I did, and I think we should ask ourselves if it was the year of the woman. What happened to me?
I ask that myself all the time.
Wait a minute. But we can dissect that in for the political assessment of it all. And I think that there's some other things going on. But I think that I believe that it was time for me to run as a person at my age, as now being in that position to do so. So I'm glad I did. No regrets.
Yep.
Would I have done some things differently? Absolutely.
So you said that people asked you to run. Had you thought about running?
I will say that through the years,
For something, at least. Maybe not U.S. Senate, but...
Yeah. I mean, just because of being the first woman lottery director, being on Governor Romney's cabinet, I actually have done 4 startup companies, being a small business owner. I had a right mix of being able to say, here's what I offer that could be different from what the Democrats have today. So I think that was just, and truly, when I say to people who said, I wish I could have voted for you in the general, I say, well, truly, I was there to offer a choice because I was different. There were differences between myself and our current U.S. Senator.
Girly, did someone have to ask you?
No, I've always wanted to run
I love it.
since I was 10 years old.
Wow.
And what...
The motive is different.
Yeah, I love it. What was in you? What made you say from a little girl, that's what I want to do?
I talk about my mother. My mother came from Haiti in the 1980s, and she always talked about the importance of voting as, a person who come here and has the right to vote. And she would take me to the ballot. And when I was around 9, 10 years old, she would always talk about the mayor and how he wasn't doing his job. And I said, one day, Mom, I'm going to be that person who's going to fix every single problem that you and a lot of families in Everett are going through, and I'm going to run for office.
I love it. It's so interesting because so many women I find run for office from that caretaker place, right? We might disagree on what we think the right policies are to accomplish that, but I feel like so many people are motivated by the desire to care for neighbors and communities, and I think that resonates with a lot of folks.
What I think is really kind of amazing too is not to point out the generational difference, but I mean, Girly, as someone,
it's a small gap.
Yeah, small gap. You're a millennial, and so I mean, I think it's kind of interesting that. So normal statistics show that women need to be asked 10 times to run for office before they actually take the plunge and do exactly what Beth said. We overthink everything from, is my family going to be okay if I do this? What are going to be the implications? Are my friends going to be accepting of this? Am I good enough? Am I perfect enough? Am I smart enough? Am
I can't run for dog
motivated
catcher
enough?
unless I have a PhD in veterinary science.
Right. I need to do more before I'm able to run. And I wonder a little bit because, all of us are a little bit like outside of Jesse, you're close, but outside of the millennial group. But I'm wondering if a little bit of it is being your age, is there less of that concern that we all have as women who grew up in a society where we were told what the societal norms are supposed to be? And maybe, that's different for your generation. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, when I think about me, and even now when I'm trying to convince people to run, they tell me that. They say, I have my children, I have my husband, or, I don't really have a political science background or anything like that. And I'm like, well, forget all that. If you care, if you can knock on doors and talk to people, you can do it. And I think for me, I've always been breaking barriers and always feeling like you can't tell me no. And I don't know if that has to do with being a millennial or how I grew up, but I was saying, I looked at the candidates and I looked at all the people who are running for office in Everett, and most of them don't have bachelor degrees. Most of them don't have experience like I have, and they get to run and win. Why can't I do it?
Can I jump in on that? I think, and that's great to hear. That really is great to hear. I think from my generation, where I have broken barriers, I've hit those, smashed the glass ceiling, if you will, in my own way, being a women first, but having sat executive teams of all men, having been there, but always while doing that thinking like, okay, this is new territory. So it is kind of, am I good enough? Am I worthy enough? Do I have the right skill set? And this is what we struggle with, getting women on boards of companies. And I think, so that is my generation of being able to, now we have gone to college with males. And so now, but that wasn't always the case either. So your generation has had that freedom to say, wait a minute, the sky's the limit, you know? We've always been like, we've got to try to reach that sky. So I think that's a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say, one of the things that I always noticed was I was always, and still a lot of times, only the only woman in the room in politics. And, sitting on boards for a long time, maybe the only woman or one of a handful, definitely the youngest woman. And so, I think it's hard to get out of that mindset of, can I do this? Because if all the expectations are on me as that one woman, then gosh, the whole world is watching. As opposed to, and I hope it's a generational thing, because that would be awesome if coming up the pike are all these new leaders who say, it doesn't even matter. And there are many more in the room. So I give you a lot of credit for waking up and doing that, and I hope that is the way of things to come.
Yeah, and quite frankly, what's the point of everyone, our generation and above, breaking those glass ceilings if it wasn't to make it easier for people coming up behind? I mean, that would be such a waste of
because now women
grief
on
and
boards
effort.
And women getting involved is a norm versus, North Star.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Beth, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to start with you, but so looking at your, you clearly, I know you and I think you're phenomenal and I think you would be a great candidate just because you're an awesome person. But if you look at you on paper, if you go on your LinkedIn and you see your history within government, outside of government, being Scott Brown's campaign manager, all the things that you've done, the boards that you've served on, you were the face and the voice for Governor Baker's PAC when he ran in 2014. So your face was all over TV, not like people wouldn't know who you were. What do you think happened? Like, why do you think in 2018, running against two men in a Republican primary?
Well, my motive for running was because, as I said, giving voters a choice and having a clear difference of opinion with our current U.S. Senator. But getting into the primary, and I analyze this, the kind of the what ifs, but I do think that there was a self-funder in there, and money matters. And that is so disappointing, as I was just having a conversation with someone saying, so someone like me who doesn't have millions and millions of dollars, does that mean I can't run? Well, I have to raise it. I tried my best, but I was up against two other gentlemen. One who was building his brand for 3 years and having more right-wing talk show hosts build that brand to the base, and that's who comes out in primaries and comes out to a primary that Bill Galvin put on the Tuesday after Labor Day. I mean, so, and this is the thing in politics is you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what the current events are going to be. You don't know who else is going to be in the race. The 3rd and the 7th congressional races were difficult because in a primary they were very hotly contested on the Democrat side, so they were pulling those ballots that way. So, you don't know when you have to make that decision a year in advance. And of course, me making it a year in advance was too late in someone's opinion. So those are all things that are frustrating to me. So in the what happened, I think there was the successful candidate building his brand for many years and having that as a strategy early on, and then the self-funder who said, I'm just going to buy the race. And so I'm the woman out there working really hard, meeting people and loving it, looking people in the eye and hearing their problems and they want to be a problem solver, and it just wasn't enough. And that feels sad.
Do you feel like, positive or negative, there were gender dynamics at play at your race? And Gerly, I'm gonna ask you the same question, but so often we talk about gender dynamics as a negative thing. Sometimes it can be really positive. So I'm curious if you feel like you had any advantages.
Advantages?
Or disadvantages.
Well, no, because people would say, and some of the other candidates would say, oh, she's playing the gender card. She's playing the female card. I'm like, wait a minute, look at my resume. And I would say, don't vote for me because I'm a woman. Vote for me because I'm qualified. And let's talk about the issues. That was part of, the ability to go up against Elizabeth Warren, saying, okay, take the gender issue off the table, and now we have to talk about issues. And there's no, claiming that there's any other dynamic there. So, but I would say running as a female, I think there are just some advantages because I believe we are more collaborative. And, we would try to make coalitions and really connecting with people. I've heard that time and time again about my other two opponents. They're in the room, they're out, they took a picture, they don't really care. And I think it was the caring part, whether it's being a nurturer, because that's what we are, or maybe not everybody is, but I'm saying this for myself. So I think that there were some differences in connecting with people, but I think there was kind of like that just red meat out there this time. And we can not talk about it, or we can talk about it, but I think it has to do with our divided. But anyway, go ahead, Gerly, and your answer.
The advantage of being a woman, or
and just your experience running. And I'm fascinated to hear if you experienced any differences as a candidate between 2016 and 2018.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I first ran in 2016, a lot of people was like, who's this 26-year-old? Who's this person? Even though I grew up in Everett, it's my hometown, a lot of people felt like I was still an outsider, and we all know why. And I think for me, it was trying to prove myself, continuously proving myself.
Well, and Everett has changed a whole heck of a lot.
It has.
Yeah, and do you feel like that was part of why some people maybe saw you as an outsider?
Yeah.
Not a part of the old establishment?
Exactly.
And what the various definitions of that?
Yeah. Even though I'd be like, I grew up here. This is the house I grew up in. Do you want the... And it was funny because people would actually look up the record to see when my mom actually bought and my dad bought the house because they didn't believe me. And I was like,
here's my kindergarten report card. Right?
But the change, I think, was more of people actually started to believe in who I was. They saw my qualifications. They saw what I've done. I am 29 years old, but they saw that I did a lot. And they were like, you know what, this person's actually smart. She could actually do this job. And when it came to the whole gender piece, I was running against, for me, it wasn't just the establishment. It was everybody saw it as Gerly was running against a boys club. And we didn't want to say it out loud, but she was, right? Mm-hmm. I'm running against the mayor. I'm running against the mayor's nephew, who's the counselor, who was the campaign manager for the current state rep. Running against the state rep, running against the whole school committee who decided to endorse the whole city council. It was just
and you still came that close.
And I still came that close. So I think it was like, wow, like this person could do this. And I don't know if it was the. I remember when I was knocking on doors days before the election day, and a woman told me, you know what, Gerly, we've never had a woman state rep, we've never had a woman mayor, we never had a woman state senate, we have one woman on city council, can we at least have one more seat, right? And I was like, oh, wow, yeah. But she said, honestly, your qualifications are amazing. And I think I go back and I think about, like, I am so super proud of what this campaign did. I don't care what anyone says. I think for what we were going against, I think we did a lot. And especially to see more women and people of color come out to vote, that was exciting of the Year of the Woman. I do think running against the whole establishment by myself was tough. And it was.
Well, and I agree. Let me jump in on that. I felt that same way. I was doing it on my own.
Yeah.
Wasn't looking for, not asking for any help, knowing that this is, I got to do this on my own. And I feel very, very proud of that.
Yes.
With help
Should be.
from friends. But I think, no, it's true. It's like, standing up there and saying, okay, we're not asking for help. We're not looking.
Yeah.
I mean, I was endorsed by, National Women's PACs, but, that was good because they believe, wow, we have actually a good candidate coming out of Massachusetts. So there was some help there. But, from on the ground game and just really working it and creating your own brand and being your own person, I felt, we did that, and that's what we had to do.
So do you think that this is consistently a thing that I think us that work in the women's space feel and see and hear a lot, but when you're out there as a candidate, do you feel the old boys network at work? Do you feel that there are people who want to be? I mean, and I'll say one of my friends, who may or may not listen to this, said to
Only
me,
if your mom calls them and takes them off.
said to me, what can I tell you? I like old white wealthy men. And I was like, I hate you. By the way, I still
Do
am
they know
pissed
they
at
said
you.
that out loud?
I know, and it said it to me no less, right? And so, I think that there is still a contingency, and these aren't old men. These are, men that know better, right? So what do you feel, though, as a candidate that we don't see? Do you feel it? Is it palpable? Or is it that everyone says, we love you and you're great, and then they go to the ballot box and there's just something else that happens?
Well, I'll tell you a quick story. I remember one day I was door knocking, and a middle-aged older woman came to the door, and she knew who I was. She's like, "Girl, I know who you are. I've seen you in the newspaper every week. I read about you. Great qualifications." I said, "Well, are you going to vote for me?" She's like, "Hold on." She gets her husband. Her husband comes out and says, "Girly, I know who you are, but we're not going to vote for you."
And did he say why?
And he was speaking for both of them.
And he was speaking for both of them. And he did. He did. And he said, "Honestly, Gerly, Joe, my opponent, is our friend, and we're going to vote for him." And I was so shocked that, she did that. And I was like, wow. And it wasn't the only time.
Yeah.
There was plenty of times after that, and I saw that. And so it was, we're still in that time where, and the person, the woman knew who I was, knew my story, knew my qualifications, but her husband still spoke for her. And I was like, wow, we're still there, And I thought, and I think in Everett, if, I know I saw some of your signs in Everett, so it's very, I don't want to say old school, but it still has that mentality where my husband makes a decision for both of us. And I saw that reality, and I was still trying to go against that. There's a lot of people that moved into Everett who are new, who are minorities, who are millennials. But at the end of the day, when we look at the traditional voters who are still coming out, it was still those people, and it was tough. So I was going against that.
In my case, I'm not quite sure it was that old boys network, because I really just think it was the base of, Second Amendment, kind of just real strong, maybe, pro-life. I'm not quite sure. I just feel that was because I was not, I'm a support Roe versus Wade. But anyway, but I sat in the top of the clubs and with all men around the table talking about my campaign, felt pretty comfortable, somewhat nervous, but, with some of these groups were independents, not just all Republicans. I really never felt the old boys network, because I think they looked at my resume and they said, "You know what, you're qualified, and we're really excited to have a woman," because they were not fans of Elizabeth Warren. So that's kind of how, that was my experience. I really didn't feel like that was what kept me out. I think it truly was more of that base that got called out through, conservative radio.
So can we address the orange elephant in the room? So you both had to run in the year of Donald Trump, right? and Gerly, you might have had the easier path here because you're running in a Democratic primary, talking about Donald Trump. Beth, I'm fascinated by how you would attempt to navigate a Republican primary in Massachusetts with mostly more conservative, certainly than a general election, voters coming out, some really conservative opponents, some of whom are, joined at the hip with Donald Trump, and let's just say not necessarily what feels like from the outside a favorable environment for more moderate women in the Republican Party right now.
Well, and
how was that?
Yeah. Well,
would you like to lie down? We can get you a couch.
Yeah, exactly.
well,
Or a shot
I'll
of
tell
vodka.
you, I will say though that we did it well, I thought, because I would say when talking about, because everyone would say, "Where are you on Donald Trump?" Here's where I am. I'll agree with him when it's right for Massachusetts. I'll disagree when it's not. I'll be that independent mind, always respect the office of the president. But, I have already, early on I went against something that he said. So I was proven in the very beginning that I could have an independent mind, which I thought people in Massachusetts would want. So I would say I do agree on some policy, but I disagree on the 3 T's: tone, temperament, and Twitter. And that's what I said the whole time, and that's what I believe. And so I would get that person nodding their heads. Even some of the most conservatives would be like, yeah, you're kind of right. So that's what I did. That's how I positioned myself. So I could agree, I could disagree, because that's how you have to be elected in Massachusetts. But that's how I felt.
Yeah.
I mean, we did a soft launch a year ago, end of August. And right after I did a launch, within 10 minutes, I denounced his comments on Charlottesville. And said at times like these, when the country needs to look to a leader, I was disappointed in his words, because a leader should calm the tides, and he didn't do that.
Understatement of the year, yes.
So again, for me as a candidate, as a Republican woman candidate, which is hard enough in Massachusetts, it was a constant trying to say, look, I have an independent mind. I am a Republican. I'm a fiscal conservative, and so those are the policies that I will agree with. But I just don't agree on a lot of the behavior. I don't condone it.
And did you feel like, particularly among folks who, may have ultimately wound up with Deal in the Senate race or Lively in the gubernatorial race, were they open to that conversation, or did you feel like it was just a closed door from the get-go? And maybe that would be because of policies or because of gender. I don't know.
I think there were a lot of people open to that message. I just didn't have the money to get out in front of them for them to know who I was. I do. And like I said, Jeff Deal has built his brand for, 3 years with more conservative talk show hosts, and that I find was probably the toughest thing to go up against.
But do you think, I guess more specifically, in a Republican primary, so I mean, in a general, right, Massachusetts, 55% of the electorate are unenrolled voters, right? So a little bit more broad-minded than just in a primary. Whereas in the Republican primary with 10.6% Republicans, do you think it's possible for, and I'm interested in what Gerly has to say about the people that she met and the comments that she received, because I wonder in our primaries, even though it's Massachusetts, is there space for moderates and then add on it a moderate woman? Because if you're being primaried and there's someone to the right of you who's a man, I wonder how that all plays in, regardless of branding or money or anything else. Because I still do see, even though we're progressive Massachusetts and we're filled with lots of
She did air quotes around
progressive. And even though we're filled with very educated people and we have less than 3% unemployment, and it would all lead you to believe that people here in Massachusetts understand the need for every level of office to have an even playing field, right? Not under 20% in Congress of women, not 26% of the legislature being women, but actually even. And so I wonder, like, where is the world for the moderate, and more specifically, the moderate woman?
Do you want to go first, or?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say this. So Everett voted 55% for Donald Trump. And, because I am Haitian American, right? I think the question never came up because, I am a Democrat and most people would think I'm liberal and the assumption. But I think the conversation around Donald Trump was a tiptoe because, Everett loves Trump. And you would have Democrats still to this day love Trump. I can be honest, I think some of my family members voted for Trump.
Wow.
And it was a tough conversation to have with people.
Makes Thanksgiving fun.
Yes. And, I do have a business background. I'm a small business owner. I went to Bentley. I'm doing my MBA now. And so I thought more people would put me towards that, but they didn't. And so it never really came up on the doors. I think it came up 2 times with 2 Hispanics. And they asked me, are you going to stand against Trump? And I said, of course. But it didn't come up. But I was nervous because Everett loves Trump. And there's still a lot of our council members who post about their love for Trump. And I was like, oh, man, am I going to lose votes because of my stance and how I feel? But
Well, I think you're right. And I ran into that with, like I said, there are people who were just very pro-Trump, especially in a primary. And that to me is the sad thing, because how does a moderate woman ever get through a Republican primary?
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess my last question is, and Jesse, and then I'll punt it to you, is just, for the two of you, how do we change the electoral culture, right? The voting culture, because Republican and Democrat, right? Difference in age groups, difference in where you live and your backgrounds. How does this change?
Well, I would say just quickly, because a friend of mine gave me the book, this Centrist Manifesto, right? And I've read that, so it's top of mind. And it is talking about an election structure almost like California has. So that could be interesting, because then let's take that off the table. Let's put everybody together and the top vote getters, and let's see what happens. And especially with the 55% or whatever percent independents in Massachusetts, that could be quite interesting. Because at least being a candidate, I know with Democrats, independents, there was a lot of different beliefs. Pro-Trump, negative Trump, just all in between. So
I think we just need more candidates running. I know in Everett in Massachusetts, right? We just saw
Choices, options.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we got to see so many people came out. In my primary, it was nearly about 5,000 people. The last primary had 2,800 people.
Wow.
So for it to jump that much, people
Right.
felt like, you know what, we actually
Yeah.
have a real choice. So I just think Republicans, Democrats, unenrolled, independent, all of them,
Well,
everybody.
let me say, running for
Everybody
U.S.
gets
Senate
run.
is kind of a big decision. Just like, okay, keep on going.
So that's the perfect segue for how we want to close this. So you guys ran, you lost, and you're sitting here a month later, still standing, laughing about it. I think people who want to run for office get so scared of the idea of losing, right? It is a giant public job interview, and you might get rejected. You might not get the job, and you don't get it in front of your friends and your neighbors and your family. But that happened to you, and you're still here. What do you have to say?
Well, I'm just going to say, jumping, because I heard you say it, and I felt the same way. It's like you feel like you let people down. And I think that's the hard feeling. Even though you know in your brain you didn't, you did your best self, you tried, but it still feels that way. So,
But I
I mean, if
also
we could
heard
get
both of
over
you say
that.
you're proud.
Oh, very
You
much
both
so.
said
yeah.
you were proud.
Yeah. So, no, go ahead. I want to hog up the time.
You know, I think you run. Or you do as you wish. You know, you don't let it get you down. I think this campaign, people think I'm the future. They think I should run for mayor, right? Like, who would have thought that doing this would have done that? And, you know, honestly, we talk about it. That was my dream when I was 10, right?
That's
So it's
amazing.
going full circle.
So you're working toward it, and I think that's a good message too. If you have this, put yourself forward. You have to put yourself out there, and that's what I did. It is hard though to think about. Okay, when is the next time? Because if you look at a primary in Massachusetts from a moderate woman, it is a business decision, and that's why I ran on this case. This was about me saying this has the fire in the belly over this sitting senator. So, is it just to run, or is it to run because of the opportunity? And to me, that was the business decision.
Yeah.
Because I do think.
And I think we know there's value in losing and losing well.
Yeah.
Right?
And having your reputations, because both of you have outstanding reputations. You're liked. I think, holding yourself up high and being classy and smart and well-rounded serves you well no matter what you do. So thank you, both of you, for running, for your service, and for being here.
spending a half hour with us. Beth and Gerly, thank you so much. I'm Jessie Mermell. I'm a Democrat.
And I'm Jennifer Nassour, a Republican.
And moms, we'll see you in 2 weeks.